All right, thanks for coming back with us for part two of Duality of Wrestling's podcast in review of AEW Grand Slam Mexico that just took place. I don't want to waste our time. Let's jump back into it. We got a lot to still cover, guys. Next up, we went almost straight away into Kyle Fletcher defending his AEW International Championship against Speedball Mike Bailey. I am a little bit surprised this match didn't main event. Honestly, it was the first match announced for the Grand Slam Mexico card. It is probably the most prominent championship that was defended on the show. So I'm a little bit confused as to why we didn't go that route. I will say, having watched the main event, I can say wholeheartedly the main event was freaking awesome, and I have no qualms with it getting the spot that it got. But again, usually your biggest matches are the ones announced first for the given show, and given that Fletcher versus Bailey for the international title was announced back at the Redemption pay-per-view and was the first match signed for this show, I'm a little bit surprised that this didn't main event. That said, great match overall. Speedball came out wearing a lucha mask. It almost looked a little bit like a Hayabusa style mask to me. It was talked about that it was an homage to Mystico, except it wasn't a Mystico style mask, even in Speedball's new colors. So I didn't totally get that. I'm not exactly sure what lucha mask it was. If you happen to know what lucha mask Speedball was wearing, please let me know in the comments. I couldn't really tell just based off that, and I did absolutely zero goddamn research leading into this because I wanted to come in reacting fresh to it. So please educate me in the comments if you know what lucha mask that was. Fletcher also comes out coming his own actual Mystico style mask adorned in his own colors, except that he's not wearing it, he is holding it and eventually steps on it and drags it out of the ring with his feet, which then leads to, a fisticuffs exchange with Speedball at the start of this match. We got a vicious running snake eyes early on the outside from Fletcher to Speedball, and commentary was good to note that usually AEW's guardrails, which is what Speedball was thrown into, are moving and have a little bit more give to them, but Arena Mexico's are permanently installed in the venue, so they can't be moved, so there's much less give to them. So that was a really great way to sell the damage done to Speedball potentially with that move by just highlighting the subtle differences of the venue of Arena Mexico versus the venues that AEW typically runs. Very subtle way to highlight that. I really liked what commentary did there. The crowd, which was a little bit dull for the previous two matches, has come back to life again. They're really hot for this match. Speedball got them on their feet with a Rana and a moonsault as they brawled up the ramp onto the steps. Speedball even hit the ladder of that moonsault from the middle of the steps, which looked very impressive. And man, that guy has some hops to him. Speedball went for a Rana later on. In the ring, Fletcher holds on and they both end up falling to the floor, but Kyle Fletcher maintains his grip as they fall to the floor, and he is able to then lift Speedball up and hit an apron powerbomb with it, almost kind of in the way Brock Lesnar used to do when he first debuted, and Chris Jericho used to do very early on in his WWE career. Really good looking spot, and it speaks to the nice, coordination and endurance that both Speedball and Fletcher showed there. Speedball then kicks out of the running kick into the corner and the sheer drop brainbuster in a great near fall. Bailey then eventually hits a top rope jumping poison Rana and then hits an Ultimo weapon, but Kyle Fletcher barely kicks out, and the crowd and me totally bought that as a near fall finish. Fletcher kicking out of the Ultimo weapon and a poison Rana in quick succession is not something that is typically on anybody's bingo card, but I definitely didn't, even though I didn't think Fletcher was dropping the title here, I suspended my disbelief and definitely bought that near fall. Again, great match, great structure. Fletcher then catches a Bailey kick. He's able to transition that into the running snake eyes into the corner, hits the running boot again, and then hits what is becoming his big match finisher, the avalanche sheer drop brain buster into the buckle for the win. Fantastic contest. Ordinarily, I would say this is the best match of the night. Somehow it isn't, but it was great. Hats off to both guys. I do really still hope that we get a four-way for the International Championship, but we tend to be trending in a different direction because post-match, Fletcher's celebration is interrupted by Okada making his entrance for the Don Callis family trios match against Mystico, Jericho, and Darby Allin. And there is a stare down between Okada and Fletcher on the ramp, where Fletcher lifts the title high just to sort of show that he's still intending on being the greatest international champion of all time, which in Okada's mind would nullify his reign as such. So that seems to be the way we continue to build the tension and this feud heading into All In. But it's another week we don't see Takeshita involved here. And it makes me wonder, are we still going to do a triple threat between those three men at All In? Are we still going to do a potential four-way with Speedball and those three men? Or are we just going to do Kyle Fletcher versus Okada straight up for the international championship? I'm not mad at any of them. I do think Takeshita being involved in this to make it a three-way or Speedball for a four-way makes a great deal of sense, considering they've both been orbiting these men and this championship for quite some time. Let's see how it plays out. But the wrinkles and nuggets that are being added into this build make me think it is growing less and less likely that it's going to be a multi-man match between Fletcher and his challenger or challengers for All In. That takes us into the trios match of the Don Callis family, being Okada, Hechicero, and the TNT champion Kevin Knight, taking on Mystico, Chris Jericho, and Darby Allin. We get big reaction to Hechicero coming out for the heels, and that's to be expected considering he is the CMLL World Heavyweight Champion, and Arena Mexico is essentially his home arena and home crowd. Totally understandable, even though he's a heel. But then that reaction is immediately dwarfed by Mystico, who enters in first for the babyface team, and he gets a massive reaction. I also didn't know, and hats off to AEW's graphics department for educating me on it, he holds 4 championships through Ring of Honor, Japan, and CMLL. That is very, very impressive. And please note, none of those are AEW championships. They're not going to be too far in the future for Mystico, considering he's just coming back from injury and he is so mega over. The crowd was so pumped for his entrance, singing along the whole way. If you have not seen Mystico enter into Arena Mexico before, this is a great introduction for it, and it just shows how popular he is in his home country and his home venue. Mystico also came out holding a cross between his own mask design and Darby Allin's face paint on the other. That was really cool. I really couldn't tell at first exactly what the design was, but then once Darby came out, it kind of put it together to me that that was the crossover mask that Mystico was holding. Also, really cool wrinkle. I've seen AEW do that before, like when CM Punk donned Sting's face paint in a tag match against FTR. So this is something that sort of calls back to AEW, their babyface competitors kind of throwing homages to each other, and I really like that. I also came away so impressed in this match with Mystico as a whole. Just incredibly smooth in the ring, very crisp. Even the one botch he had towards the end of the match in a Hurricane Rana attempt to Hechicero that the commentary acknowledged he didn't get all of, he recovered very well, and the crowd didn't care even one bit. I will even enjoy that Chris Jericho, while coming out to Judas still, came out under the name Corazon de Leon, which is, loosely translated to Lionheart, which is what he wrestled under during his stint in Mexico early on in his career. I love that. Jericho calling back to early, Chris Jericho in his career, how he was starting out. He wore replicas of the same attire he wore back then in this match. Just really cool. And this is the way we should be using Chris Jericho at this point in his career. Not necessarily advancing like vanity gimmicks like the freaking Painmaker, but Jericho has such a rich lore and history of feuds and characters and angles to play off of. Let's do that, especially in countries that he wrestled in for maybe a bit more brief periods. So this was, to me, a great way to do that. I really enjoyed it. The only thing that would have pumped me up a bit more was if he used the white zombie entrance he used at the time. He may not have used that in Mexico. I only remember him using that during his Lionheart ECW entrance. So it's possible that they were, I don't want to say being a bit more authentic, because obviously Judas hadn't come out back then, but they wanted to get the Judas sing along, and they definitely got that at Arena Mexico as well. I liked the spot as well that Jericho interrupt Knight's Van Terminator later in this match with an anti-air version of the Judas effect. Looked really, really good, and I generally don't like Jericho's Judas effect, but it was well utilized here. Jericho at the end locks in the walls of Jericho on Okada. Mystico hits the La Mystica on Hechicero, and that allowed Darby Allin to hit Kevin Knight with the coffin drop to get the win. Um, Commentary strongly hinted that Darby Allin is not done with Kevin Knight. Again, I still think we're getting a coffin match between these two competitors at All In. Nothing I saw in this match makes me think otherwise, but it was very, very fun overall. The only other spot I would note from this match was Kevin Knight starting this match, doing a leaping dive shot to Darby Allin on the entrance, which again shows me that Darby is focused on Knight and vice versa. And then Okada also had a really nice anti-air outside kick while Darby was doing sort of a running plancha to the outside. That's one of his signature spots. So all of that looked very good. It was a solid match. I won't say it was spectacular. I think it was just dwarfed by how good everything else on this card was. So no shade to any of the competitors here. Very, very good match. We again transitioned pretty quickly to the next match. We got a video package detailing the build up to it, and this was Chris Statlander taking on CMLL Women's Champion Persephone here. Persephone came out in a black and white veil / shawl looking combo. I don't know the precise term for it. That's just how it looked to me. It looked pretty badass though. She looked almost supernatural. Really, really liked the ambiance she had wearing that in her entrance. At one point, Statlander missed a 450 leg drop. I think commentary said it was supposed to be more of a 450 splash, but they mentioned that Statlander's feet kind of slipped out from under her, and that made it more look like a Too Cold Scorpio kind of 450 leg drop, if that makes sense. So Persephone followed that up with a spear to get a near fall. But a big part of this match took place in the outside. We saw earlier on Thunder Rosa, who was the Mexican national champion, looking on in this match, and multiple times throughout this contest, we saw Persephone trying to goad her. We saw Persephone get in her face a few times. Persephone even stole her Mexican national championship to eventually lay her out with it. Statlander eventually hit a tope splash to the floor that took out both Persephone and the official. That allowed, some delays to happen, and it allowed for Hikaru Shida to come out and hit Statlander also with the Mexican national title that had been dropped on the floor, and that allowed Persephone to hit sort of a springboard frog splash from the outside on the apron into the ring for the clean-ish win here, and Persephone gets the win over Chris Statlander in this match. All of these women being involved, to me, speak to we're going to get some kind of multi-woman match for either Maya World's TBS Championship or Thunder Rosa's Mexican National Championship. Maybe we even do a winner-takes-all match involving all of these women. I'd be interested in that. It would give it a nice little wrinkle that could differentiate it from some of the other feuds going on. But clearly, the beef between all of these women together is not over. I'm interested to see if there's any hostility between Thunder Rosa and Statlander, who are kind of your upper mid-card women at this point, to see, what tensions might be built as a result of that. So we'll have to see. But overall, again, solid match. This was kind of unspectacular, but really digging Persephone, and I'm very happy she got the win in her home country. That takes us to our second to last match of the evening, which was the Trios Championship match. The Trios champions, The Demand, who have held the belts for all of a week at this point, are taking on the newly minted team of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is Hangman Adam Page, Bandito, and Brody King. I will leave it totally up to you to decide who each one is adorned with those monikers, which was kind of the joke when this moniker was coined last week on Dynamite. The faces actually come out with a mariachi-style entrance and come out in full mariachi gear. I thought that was very cool. However, AEW's graphics team, again, dropping some fun alongside some knowledge with the tagline underneath the face team of, quote, "Worried the sombreros may be problematic." Man, that's just funny. It calls me back to when the team of Hangman and the Young Bucks, which previously went under the name Hung Bucks, that team had to be the name of it switched up and the graphics team actually called it out that it was almost a network or standards and practices decision, or even just a questionable name previously. I like that AEW's graphics department has some fun, and I can appreciate it. Um, there's also a spot during this match, speaking of problematic behavior, where the faces are doing the Macarena in the middle of the ring, and commentary kind of called them out for making poor decisions doing so. Guys, is the Macarena big in Mexico? Like, is the Macarena still big anywhere outside of like really low rent weddings? Like, are we still doing the Macarena? Is that something that's still happening? Somebody let me know in the comments, because I thought the Macarena was as dead and buried as like Spice World and Hanson. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a thing south of the border, but doing the Macarena mid match is weird. I'm on commentary side on that one. There's also a spot later in the match where Toa Leona from the Demand picks up all three baby faces, stacks them on himself in various positions, and hits a Samoan drop on all three competitors. Man, that is a strong dude to be able to pull that off. The finish sees Hangman get queued up for a buckshot lariat into the 21 plex onto Leona, which has the babyface team pick up the win and the trios championships. So yes, we are hot potatoing the trios titles around again, guys. The Demand held it for all of a week after winning it from the Conglomeration, who also didn't have it for a super long time, and now we've got it on to the babyface team of Brodito and Hangman Adam Page. Oh, can we stop doing this with the trios championships? I am begging us to stop hot potatoing them from team to team to team. It's too much. We have really just lost sight of the plot with how much we keep moving these belts around. At some point, we need to, keep them on a team for a long time, and maybe we'll do that this time. Maybe we'll keep the belt on Hangman and Brodito for quite some time. I'd be fine with that. But I also thought we were going to keep the belts on the Demand for quite some time. They are a long established team and stable at this point. They would have been an easy way to build this title up, or these titles up, and have a bit more credibility reattached to them, considering we've lost that from them by moving the belts around so much. The shuffling has to end, or the titles themselves has to end. Pick one, AEW. Either keep the belts on a team for a long time or retire them. I don't care which you do at this point, but stop doing what you're doing. It makes the trios titles look beyond basic. Finally, we get to our main event of the evening, and this was worth waiting for, y'all. Will Ospreay against Mark Davis in a Mexico City street fight. Now, this was advertised originally as no outside interference match. I still don't know how you jive that stipulation with also a Mexico street fight, where, even Justin Roberts announced that this is an anything goes match. So if it's anything goes, there can't be a no outside interference thing, because theoretically outside interference would go too. It just stands to reason. How are we balancing these two? I don't know, but this match was so good, I don't even care. I'm fine to leave that narrative weirdness alone. That's how good this match was. Davis early on power bombs Will Ospreay onto the outside into a fan over the guardrail. That looked vicious, and I certainly hope that was a plant, because I don't want to see AEW get sued over it, but definitely looked rough. And then we saw Davis later on throwing Will into a chair wedged in between the buckles earlier on, and that busted Will Ospreay open to give us our first blood of this street fight. That allows Dunkzilla to bring out a fork and introduce that into this match, and he would further then gouge and jab at Will Ospreay's forehead wound, making that blood flow a bit more. But then Will counters with hitting the Raven spot of the drop toe hold into the setup chair, into the flat part of the chair. Will then follows that up with an Oz cutter for a near fall. Ospreay then takes the fork and repeatedly jabs at Davis's forehead with it, and that sort of busts Davis open. So now we have both competitors bleeding, which is what you'd expect from a street fight. Davis with a crazy side power bomb through two setup chairs, but admittedly, if you watch it live and check the replay that AEW showed, Davis took the worst of it. He basically took all of one chair being folded up completely onto his lower back. Will didn't take much of it, but it got us a 2 count. Davis, again, he is now busted open. Davis took the barbed wire off one of those chairs and started sliding it all over Will's face, again, making that blood flow a bit more. But Will then tosses a chair at Mark Davis to stop Dunker's momentum. Such a good back and forth match. Davis takes the barbed wire as they spill to the apron and gouges the back of Will Ospreay with that wire. And you can show it's not really gimmicked wire because Will's back immediately develops scratches and starts bleeding pretty significantly. So hats off to AEW for not using gimmicked wire and it looking very, very brutal. Will counters this with the old beanbag grab to stop Davis in his tracks. You get the big look from Davis to really sell the scrot grab. And then we get a kick and a pile driver on the apron from Ospreay. Holy crap. This was just such an amazing sequence. Everything just looked so good. The physicality is on display. This guy's athleticism is on display. The crowd is nuclear into it. Just such a good main event. I texted my friends while watching this, said this was a vintage ECW style main event. That is the best way I can describe it. And to me, with my background and how I grew up in wrestling in Philadelphia, that is the highest form of compliment I can pay a TV match being an ECW style match. Will then hits a hidden blade as Davis rolls back into the ring and just gets a 2 out of it. And that leads us to Davis with an incredible counter on a forearm shot into Davis's sort of Dr. Bomb-esque side pile driver power bomb finisher for a great near fall. It looked incredible. I bought it for a second. Davis then wraps his right arm in the barbed wire to go for a clothesline off the ropes. Will then counters and floats over into the Styles Clash, and that gets us a 2. Will even just getting a guy up of Davis's size and holding them for the delayed Styles Clash. Just, again, so good. Will starts with the Death Rider style forearms at our conclusion here, then wraps Davis's head up in the barbed wire itself before hitting the hidden blade for the pin and the finish in this match. Wow. You guys, I know last week when I talked about the opener between Jack Perry, Andrade El Idolo, and Commander for the national championship, that I didn't want to list spots and just go watch the match. It's that good. I could easily say the same thing here, but there were so many fun, innovative spots. They were able to use weapons. They were able to use physicality, able to use the elements of the ring and arena itself, and even the fans. Do not miss this match. This is honestly my favorite AEW Dynamite main event of the year. It is probably one of my favorite Dynamite main events ever. This was so good. It made, obviously, Ospreay look strong in the clean victory, but it made Mark Davis look like an absolute killer too. This match is straight up not to be missed. It is one of the best Dynamite matches as a whole of the entire year. Go out of your way to watch the Mexico City street fight between Will Ospreay and Mark Davis that main evented Grand Slam Mexico. It is that good. You are going to be missing out if you don't check this match out. That wraps us up for our review of Grand Slam Mexico. I want to know what you guys thought. What did you think of the MJF return? Was it the right time? Would you have preferred to wait to All In? What do you think of the feud's trajectory? What do you think of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly taking home the trios titles? Am I being a bit too much of a prickly pear in saying my objections to it? Are you fine with them winning? Or do you sort of side with me that we need to stop swapping these championships around? And lastly, what did you think of some of the big matches of this show, specifically the main event and the international title match? Give me your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear what you've got to say. Thank you so much for watching Duality of Wrestling's review of Grand Slam Mexico. It is definitely one of the stronger Dynamites of the year. The arena, atmosphere, and layout and structure as a whole just makes it such a unique feel. I am glad that wrestling as a whole, but more specifically AEW, is really embracing the international crowds and the unique feel that they have inside these arenas and the energy that they bring. I love international crowd. I love that we're doing this more often. Let's keep rolling with it. Thank you guys so much for watching the podcast. I'll be back tomorrow with a preview of the AEW Continental Cup, which kicks off this Saturday on Collision. But for right now, I am Christian. Thanks for checking out Duality of Wrestling. See you guys on the next one.